In the third year of being with Julian Thorne, he was preparing for a political marriage. I lowered my gaze to my still flat belly and gathered the courage to speak. I love you. Don't choose her, choose me, please. The corners of his lips lifted in a faint smile, but there was no warmth in his eyes. Elena, it seems I've spoiled you too much. Remember your place and don't have unrealistic fantasies. You know what I'm capable of. I hastily wiped away my tears and took a night flight to Harbor City. From that moment on, I had nothing more to do with him. 2 years later, my fiancé took me back to Capital City for our engagement ceremony. As he carefully explained his family's relationships, he mentioned his uncle, an influential man in Capital City, and leaned close to my ear whispering teasingly, "Don't be fooled by how cold and ruthless my uncle looks. 2 years ago, he actually stopped a plane for love." My heart tightened unconsciously. I turned my face toward Lucas, intrigued. Did he manage to stop it? Of course not. Lucas pinched my cheek between his long fingers, stretching out his voice playfully. He didn't. Those years my uncle was fighting for power. Grandpa forced him into marriage with the inheritance on the line. Lucas paused, then chuckled again. But my uncle isn't the kind of man who'd lose himself in love. It was just a scene. Now who knows, maybe he's doing great with his fiancée. Rich families are all the same after all. The plane landed slowly amid turbulence. I turned my head, staring blankly at the emptiness outside the window. It was just like when I'd left 2 years ago. Suddenly I was taken back to that early morning. I woke up beneath Julian's dense kisses. "My little darling is still such a scaredy cat," he had murmured, pressing down on me. When fireworks bloomed outside, he whispered softly in my ear, "My sweetheart, I'm getting married." That suffocating feeling spread from my body to my heart. My nails dug into his solid chest as my voice trembled. "Really? And I also have a gift for you." Julian caught the hand I stretched toward the bedside table, his tone filled with satisfaction after passion, and a hint of mocking amusement. "What could you possibly give me?" The next second he pulled away. His fingertips lifted a black card and placed it on the bedside table, covering the little gift that had made my heart overflow with joy. "Isabella doesn't like women like you. You should leave." For a moment my mind went blank. I wondered if I had misheard him and just stared in confusion. Julian Thorne dressed quickly, picked up his suit jacket and turned sharply. "Forgotten already?" Isabella Vance, the eldest daughter of the Vance family, perfectly matched with the Thorne family. "You've met her. You know what she's capable of." My body shuddered instinctively. Instantly, the image of that proud young lady who once poured a glass of red wine over my head flashed in my mind. I sobered up completely, rushing off the bed to hold him tight. "Don't go. Julian, you said you loved me. I love you too. Don't choose her, choose me, please. And I'm all ready." Julian's lips curved again, but there was no warmth in his eyes. "Elena, I've spoiled you too much. Remember your place and stop dreaming above your station. And don't you dare provoke Isabella." His face turned completely cold. "You know what I can do." I rested my hand on my belly, sitting alone in despair for 2 whole days. Then finally, I left Capital City in disgrace. "Do you miss Charlie?" Lucas gently squeezed my palm. "Don't worry, we'll be back soon." When Lucas courted me, he only knew I'd once had an unpleasant relationship in Capital City. I lowered my gaze and quietly tightened my hold on his hand. That man. He was the powerful head of the Thorne family. Capital City was vast. There was no way we'd run into each other. The car came to a smooth stop in front of a grand garden villa. Lucas held my hand as we got out. "Elena, this is the family's old residence. We won't be coming here often." He always seemed carefree, yet he was meticulous about everything, from daily life to emotions, never missing a detail. I smiled and nodded. "It's fine." I followed him into the villa. Lucas once told me he'd been rebellious since childhood, free-spirited and untamed. After graduating from a university abroad, he had stayed in Harbor City and rarely returned home. His family was indulgent toward him, asking only that he didn't go too far. Just like now, Lucas's mother held my hand warmly. There was no scrutiny or judgment in her eyes, only a soft smile she couldn't hide. "Just treat this place as your own home." A gentle warmth filled my heart. I handed over the carefully chosen gifts I had prepared for them. Thank you, Grandpa, Auntie, Uncle. Dad, where's Uncle? Lucas asked playfully. He said he'd give me a huge red envelope. Is he hiding from us? Lucas always got a little excited whenever he mentioned his uncle. The old master snorted coldly upon hearing the word uncle. Lucas's father said, You brat, has your uncle ever shorted you anything? Whatever you wanted since childhood. Did he ever refuse you? Just as his words fell, the butler's voice came from the doorway. Master, Madam, young sir, Mr. Arthur the assistant has arrived. Lucas's eyes brightened. He leaned toward me and whispered in explanation, My uncle's personal assistant. I nodded softly and turned toward the door. The next second, I saw a man dressed impeccably in a tailored suit. My breath caught. When Arthur saw me, his expression froze for a brief moment. He quickly masked whatever emotion had flickered in his eyes and spoke in a gentle, professional tone. Good evening, Master, Madam, young sir. My employer was held up by business and couldn't make it back to personally welcome the young master home, so he specially picked out gifts for both the young master and his future. He paused briefly. Young lady. The old master let out another cold snort. Lucas stood up to accept the gift, clapping Arthur's shoulder with a grin. Assistant Arthur, please thank my uncle for us. Tell him he must come to our engagement party. Arthur nodded, hesitated slightly, then said, The master. Will, I suppose. He gave me a polite smile. Perfectly composed, flawless as always. Watching his retreating back, my heart grew inexplicably restless. When I had been with Julian for those 3 years, he had kept me well hidden. Almost no one around him had known of my existence, except Arthur. He had been Julian's most trusted personal assistant. I couldn't imagine what kind of man Lucas's uncle must be. Someone capable of taking even Arthur away from Julian's side. The family had already arranged everything for the engagement banquet. Lucas and I simply followed the schedule. His uncle seemed extremely busy, and Lucas kept worrying that he might not make it in time. On the eve of the engagement, Lucas's friends insisted on throwing him a bachelor party. He pestered me for a long while before I finally gave in and agreed to go with him. Still, I couldn't help teasing him. Who brings their fiancé to a bachelor party? Lucas laughed joyfully, lifted me into his arms, and spun me around in circles, shouting that he could finally show off his wife-to-be. He really did make me laugh. Inside the private lounge, Lucas's friends were even more excited. Lucas, you've outdone yourself. After all those years abroad, you actually managed to bring back a goddess. Hello, goddess sister-in-law. I have Lucas's old middle school photos. Add me on WeChat. I'll send them to you for free. Goddess sister-in-law, I can confirm Lucas was destined to die single before meeting you. Add me, I'll send the photos too. Yeah, we used to suspect he was into men. Add me. While everyone was joking around, a mocking female voice suddenly cut through the laughter. How do you even know she's the one Lucas pursued? I turned toward the corner, where a girl with delicate makeup sat. Her pretty eyes couldn't hide the disdain as she stared straight at me. Some women from lowly backgrounds will do anything to climb into wealthy families, cling desperately, use any means necessary, even ignore moral boundaries. Clara Vance. Someone snapped at her to stop. Lucas was playing idly with my hand, smiling lazily. Yeah, you've got me all figured out. That's exactly how I chase someone. I admit it. To win Elena over, I clung to her shamelessly, relentlessly, and without hesitation. His long fingers slid over his phone screen, and soon he pulled up a file, her resume neatly collaged together. He raised his phone for everyone to see, eyes full of admiration and pride. My Elena was called a child prodigy painter at 10, admitted to the Capital City Academy of Fine Arts at 15, and last year one of her paintings was collected by the National Art Museum. Who among you can compete with that? What's wrong? Wanna compare families? Then compare with me. Finally, his gaze turned cold as it locked on the girl. The Vance family spent so much money raising you and still couldn't buy you a functioning brain. I despise stupidity. Don't ever show up in front of me again. The girl's eyes filled with tears, her lips trembling as she looked at Lucas in disbelief. I gently brushed my fingers against his palm. His expression softened slightly before he said coldly, "Leave." Clara burst into tears and ran out of the room. After a brief silence, someone joked again. Sis-in-law, do you have any siblings? What, you want to go after her brother too? Ha ha ha. The mood quickly became lively again. I just stared at Lucas quietly. Some parts of my past had long been buried with my mother. Perhaps even Julian had never known them. Yet Lucas treated those things as his pride, treasuring them with care. The tips of his ears slowly turned red. He leaned close to my ear and whispered, "Hey, stop staring at me like that, Elena. I just like you so much, so much." Bitterness and sweetness tangled inside me. My face grew warm. "I'm going to the restroom," I said softly. "I'll go with you." "No need, I'm not a child." "All right." Lucas watched me with a smile. Realizing how coquettish I had just sounded, I blushed and slipped out of the room. Clara's eyes were red and swollen when she blocked me in the restroom. "Elena, you're disgusting." I looked at her disheveled appearance and sighed softly. "Hello. If it's because you also like Lucas, I'm sorry, but I won't give him up. Because I love him and he loves me." Her anger flared even more, and she took 2 steps toward me, glaring with hatred. "What are you so proud of? You couldn't win against my sister before, and now you're here to compete with me again." Her sister? I froze for a moment, then as I looked at her face, realization struck. Isabella. When I had been with Julian, he once took me to a banquet. I was too nervous and accidentally stepped on a young lady's gown. Though nothing was ruined, she flew into a rage and picked up a glass of red wine, pouring it over my head. Julian arrived at the sound, his face dark and cold. "Get out." He was speaking to me. Later, he was the one who told me he would marry Isabella and sent me away that very night. "Elena," Clara sneered now, her tone sharp as a knife. "Does Julian know that after serving him, you've come to serve his beloved nephew?" It was as if thunder exploded in my head. My body stiffened, my voice squeezing painfully out of my throat. "What did you just say?" Clara looked at me for a few seconds before laughing coldly. "You didn't know? Elena, your life is over." Lucas was a little drunk, his gaze soft and misty as he looked at me. "Elena, you're wonderful. I'm so happy. Are you happy too?" I traced the outline of his handsome eyebrows with my fingertip. "I am happy." "Elena, don't lie to me. If you're not happy, I'll make you happy." He rubbed his head against my thigh, his voice low and full of affection. "After the engagement ceremony, let's go back to Harbor City." "Okay." I bent down and brushed a kiss on his lips. "Are you thirsty? I'll get you some water, all right?" "Thirsty?" He caught my hand, fingers intertwining tightly. "I don't want you to go. I can't bear it. Be good. Drink some water, you'll feel better." He nodded and reluctantly let go. I went downstairs, my thoughts drifting away little by little. Clara had said Lucas took his mother's surname and that the uncle he always mentioned was Julian. At that moment I had dug my nails into my palm, forcing a smile as I looked at her. So what? But the instant I turned around I could barely breathe. At 18, I had curled up in a hospital corridor, crying until I was empty in front of the massive medical bill. Then Julian appeared, like a god descending from the heavens, paid the fees and found the best specialist available. Later, when he said he liked me, I had been overwhelmed with joy, smiling through my tears. We were together for 3 years of deep, intoxicating entanglement. A man who never believed in love or fate had once whispered vows of forever, when he was moved by passion. But when I finally gathered the courage to ask for that forever, he was the one who shattered everything. The gap between our worlds, the difference in class, was an unbridgeable chasm. And after all the circles life had led me through, I ended up here. With that identity, I had never doubted Lucas's love for me. He didn't care about my family background or about my past. But what if that past, all its scars and disgrace, came from the person he loved and respected most? Could he still accept me then? Hiss! The hot water scalded my fingertips. I snapped out of my thoughts in shock. I added some cold water, filled the glass with warm water, and turned to go upstairs. Just as I reached the room, the main door opened behind me, followed by a voice so familiar it made my heart tremble. "Pour me a glass of water." Instinctively I turned around. A tall, broad-shouldered man stood there under the dim light, loosening his tie. As he bent down to change his shoes, the sharp lines of his face were etched with exhaustion. He seemed to sense something unusual. Impatiently he raised his head. Julian Thorne had been feeling inexplicably restless lately. It wasn't because of business. 2 years ago, he had forcefully taken over the Thorne Corporation from the old master. Step by step, he had secured his place as the true head of the Thorne family. In Capital City, and even across the nation's business circles, there were few who dared to challenge him. Yet, he had spent more and more nights unable to sleep. He had to admit it now, he missed someone. He missed that young girl who had walked away from him so decisively 2 years ago. Julian let out a cold, self-mocking laugh. Back then, the old man had been pressing him hard to marry for alliance. He had been in a foul mood. Unable to control his temper, he had said some cruel words and scared her off. When he heard she had left, his first instinct had been to chase after her. Halfway there, though, he changed his mind. Maybe it was for the best. Once he had complete control over the Thorne family, he could go bring her back. By then, if she wanted to become Mrs. Thorne, he might even consider it. After all, no other woman had ever really interested him. The girl had been only 18 when she'd followed him. Always so gentle, so obedient. Without his protection, where could she be hiding now? Probably suffering in silence somewhere. Even that reckless nephew of his, Lucas, was getting married. Remembering how Lucas had just now hurried to pull the woman into his arms, Julian couldn't help but chuckle. That brat, so protective of his bride already. He hadn't even had time to greet them properly, only caught a glimpse of a graceful back. The ringing of his phone pulled him out of his thoughts. Julian stubbed out the cigarette between his fingers, glanced at the caller ID and answered. What is it? Ever since Elena had been with him, Arthur rarely called him at night. She hadn't liked him overworking, and she'd been adorably clingy about it. Sir. Speak. About the young master's engagement party. Are you sure you must attend? Arthur, how long have you been with me? You're still asking questions like that? Lucas is my only nephew. Since he was a child, has there ever been anything he wanted that I didn't give him? Arthur's insistence was rare, almost uncharacteristic. Sir. If you don't make it in time, I believe it wouldn't be necessary for you to. Mind your own business. Julian's tone turned sharp as he hung up the phone. Then he looked down at the extinguished cigarette butt and smiled faintly. If his little darling were here, she'd be scolding him again. That girl had always forbidden him to smoke, saying she couldn't stand the smell. She was full of little thoughts like that, all for him. He made up his mind. After attending Lucas's engagement banquet tomorrow, he would go find her. As long as she softened up a little, he'd forgive her. It was time for them to build a life together. A smile curved unconsciously at Julian's lips as the thought settled in. Before the engagement ceremony began, I caught Lucas in the lounge. I have something I want to tell you. He tightened his grip on my hand, forcing a smile that looked a little strained. Elena, I'm willing to listen to every word you say, but this time can we go out and greet the guests first? Please. I nodded instinctively. But among those guests, that man would be there too. Lucas, I used to. Elena. Lucas raised his hand and covered my lips, his movements slightly rushed. I told you I don't care. No matter what happened before. I only want the you that stands in front of me now. But if that person is your... Before I could finish, Lucas's lips caught mine. My eyes widened in shock. It was a long while before he finally let go. He buried his head in the crook of my neck, his voice muffled and low. Elena, I'm sorry. Forgive me. But what you were about to say, I don't want to hear it. I jerked my head up, my heart pounding wildly. But he didn't give me a chance to think or ask anything. In the next second, he took my hand, fingers tightly intertwined, and led me toward the ceremony hall. Elena, he whispered close to my ear, let's get our marriage certificate tomorrow, all right? And there's been some incident with my uncle's fiancée. He won't be attending the banquet today. Just as he finished that sentence, the doors to the grand hall swung open. Lucas's gaze stayed fixed on my face as though he were trying to read something there. All right. I stared blankly at him. A storm of emotion surged inside me. But in the end, all that remained was release. And I knew with absolute certainty that this feeling of peace came because of Lucas. He made me no longer afraid, no longer uneasy. I squeezed his hand tightly in return as we walked together down that flower-lined path filled with blessings. The engagement banquet for the young master of the Thorne family was hosted personally by Lucas's mother. Everyone who attended offered their congratulations and flattery. By my strict order, Lucas wasn't allowed to drink that day. Even the plain water in his glass made his face glow red with excitement. His palm grew sweaty from holding mine, yet he refused to let go. Whenever he had a moment, he leaned over to whisper little things in my ear. By the time he had joked with half the guests, someone finally asked curiously, "Where's young Master Thorne?" "This is his favorite nephew's engagement party." Lucas ignored it completely and went on telling me about a chubby-faced Mr. Lee who was completely under his wife's thumb, then added with a grin, "Elena, even though I'm younger, richer, and better looking than him, I'm under my wife's thumb too." He sounded quite proud of it. I lowered my head and hid a smile behind my hand. "All right then, I'll make sure to keep you under control." Lucas didn't reply. When I looked up, I saw the smile frozen on his lips. His eyes had shifted toward the entrance. A tall, broad-shouldered man walked slowly toward us through the shifting lights. His perfectly tailored suit outlined his lean, powerful frame. Step by step he came closer. And when he finally stepped out of the shadow, those sharp eyes locked onto me, like a predator that had just found its prey. No one knew who said it first, but a single President Thorne broke the silence in the room. Julian gave a faint nod, his thin lips parting slightly. "Private dinner tonight. No need for formalities." After taking his seat, his gaze fell directly on Lucas and me. Lucas met his eyes for a moment, then leaned closer to whisper, "Elena, shall we go toast Uncle?" I nodded. "He's an elder, it's only proper." Lucas smiled. The dazzling lights reflected in Julian's eyes, making them seem dark and unreadable. Lucas and I raised our glasses toward him. "Uncle. Uncle." Julian repeated the word slowly, as if grinding it between his teeth. Meeting his cold, stern eyes, I said seriously, "Thank you, Uncle, for attending our engagement banquet." Julian gave a cold laugh, lifted his glass, and downed it in one go. "Good." Lucas and I also finished the tea in our cups, then turned to greet the other guests. But I could feel it, that sharp, piercing gaze that followed me the whole time. It didn't waver, not even for a second. By the time the banquet ended, one of Lucas's friends shyly suggested they all head to our new home to warm the house. Lucas waved both hands immediately. "I'm exhausted. All of you get lost and go home." I brushed my fingertips lightly against his palm. Lucas's eyes lit up at once. "You bunch of idiots, fine, go ahead." He hadn't seen them in years. Of course he wanted to hang out with his friends, but he'd been putting my feelings first. With just a tiny gesture, he understood my meaning completely. As everyone laughed and bantered, a cold, detached voice cut in. "I'll come too." People from the same social class still have their own circles. Julian was a man in power, naturally not in the same circle as Lucas and his friends who wouldn't inherit their family businesses. He sat in a corner, watching the group of quiet and submissive heirs, raising an eyebrow with a faint smile. "Did I ruin the mood for everyone?" The heirs quickly replied, No, Mr. Thorne, you're joking." "Then enjoy yourselves." Once he gave permission, the atmosphere immediately livened up. Just as Lucas came downstairs after changing clothes, he was surrounded. "Lucas, it's your big day today. How could you not drink?" Yeah. It's just us here. Even if you get drunk, your wife will take care of you." Lucas looked at me, eyes filled with both helplessness and expectation. I smiled and nodded. They have a point. See, sister-in-law knows how to keep her husband in line. Everyone cheered. My ears turned hot, and when I looked up, I accidentally met a pair of cold, dark eyes. I smiled politely, but Julian's expression only grew colder. I didn't think much of it and soon blended into Lucas's circle of friends. When my phone rang, Lucas's gaze was already hazy from the alcohol. I showed him the caller ID. It was the housekeeper from our home in Harbor City. He held onto my hand reluctantly, whispering in my ear, "I don't want you to leave, not even for a second." His breath tickled my neck. Taking advantage of the moment, I gave him a quick peck on the cheek. Be good. It's probably something about Charlie. I raised my phone to the crowd. Excuse me, I need to take this call. Sister-in-law, don't worry, we won't bully Lucas. Lucas threw a cushion at them. Get lost. Laughter filled the room again. I got up and went upstairs, but I could still feel a pair of eyes following me, never leaving my back. After finishing the call in the room, I hadn't yet turned around when the lights suddenly went out. Lucas! I called softly, testing the darkness as I moved quickly toward the door. Just as my hand brushed the doorknob, someone grabbed my wrist. The next second, that familiar cold scent surrounded me. I froze. It was Julian. Who's Charlie? I shoved at him hard. Julian let go. Moonlight poured through the window, outlining his sharp features. His expression was dark, unreadable, his deep voice laced with a strange, almost tender tone. Not calling me uncle anymore? Had your fun? I frowned, not understanding what he meant. But he stepped closer, his eyes heavy with dominance. Elena, this time you've gone too far. Come back with me now, and I'll consider forgiving you. I froze, stunned beyond words. After such a humiliating breakup, Julian actually came to my engagement banquet with Lucas and still thought I was just throwing a tantrum with him? My silence must have seemed like obedience to him. He exhaled in relief, his hand sliding up to cradle the back of my head as he bent down to kiss me. When my senses snapped back, I struggled violently. Julian, he murmured lowly, almost satisfied. My little darling. Fury shook me to my core. I swung my arm with all my strength and slapped him hard across the face. He released me, his eyes narrowing dangerously. Still not done venting? Julian, I said, trembling. We're already over. I'm Lucas's fiancée now. I turned and ran out of the room. On my way downstairs, I crashed straight into Lucas's arms. His cheeks were flushed, the haze of drunkenness gone from his eyes. My heart sank instantly. I was about to speak, but his anxious voice cut me off. Elena, Mom suddenly fainted. On the way to the hospital, I wanted to tell Lucas that Charlie was sick. But in the end, I didn't say it. I knew too well the torment of watching a loved one fall ill. I just held his hand tighter again and again. By the time we arrived, Lucas's mother had already regained consciousness. Thankfully, it wasn't serious, though her face was pale and weak. She felt guilty for falling sick on such a special day. Lucas's eyes turned red instantly as he sat by her bedside, listening to her soft words. I quietly slipped out of the ward. I sent him a message. Stay with your mother. I'll video call Charlie. He replied. Elena, thank you. Gently closing the door, I felt the tight string inside me finally loosen. That was when the sharp scent of disinfectant hit me. The discomfort of old memories rose like a tide. Frowning, I hurried toward the elevator. By the time I reached the first floor, I was almost running, rushing past the crowd in the lobby, out into the courtyard, gripping a tree as I dry-heaved violently. At last, the nausea ebbed away. When I lifted my head again, I met a pair of cold yet concerned eyes. Julian stepped forward, reaching to steady me. Are you sick? People were coming and going around us. I quickly took 2 steps back and forced a polite smile. Good evening, Uncle. He frowned. Elena, what exactly are you doing? When I sent you away back then, it was for your own good. I was planning to bring you back soon. I just didn't expect you'd go this far. Lucas has a stubborn temper. Once he sets his mind on something, he'll turn the world upside down to do it. If you're using him like this, he won't let it go easily. Come back with me now. I'll take you abroad and register our marriage there. You can stay overseas for a few years. When everyone forgets about this, you can return. I took a deep breath and lifted my head, looking at him calmly for the first time. Julian, what do you take me for? He frowned. Wasn't I clear enough? I shook my head. Julian, when I was 18, you said you wanted to be with me. I thought we were a couple. I didn't understand back then why your girlfriend had to be kept secret from your family, why your girlfriend couldn't sit at the same table as your friends, why your girlfriend, when humiliated by others, would be scolded by you for being immature. Later I understood. In your eyes, we were never a couple. Julian's gaze darkened. So now, do you really think I'm just throwing a tantrum at you? Or are you pretending not to know? Or do you truly believe that in my whole life, I'll never have anyone accept you? The fingers at his side curled unconsciously into fists. Why Lucas? Why my family? Why Lucas? I had asked myself that too. After being hurt so deeply, how could I still believe in love again? How could I still open my heart to a man, even to the idea of marriage? Because it's Lucas. Not your nephew Lucas from the Thorne family, but my Lucas, the man I love. We know each other, we understand each other, we love each other. From beginning to end, we've always been equals. Equal love, Julian. Do you even know what that means? Lucas and I decided to stay a few more days. He spent each day at the hospital with his mother while I sometimes visited, sometimes stayed home preparing remotely for my art exhibition. The day before we were to return to Harbor City, I finished packing when a thought suddenly struck me: my apartment in Capital City. It had been bought by Julian and placed under my name. Since we were no longer connected in any way, I planned to have a real estate agent sell it. I had left in such a hurry 2 years ago that there were still some of my things inside. I rushed over and saw the items on the nightstand. They were covered in dust. I gently pulled out a sheet of paper and unfolded it. I stared at it blankly. Elena. A low, familiar voice sounded behind me. I startled and turned. The paper slipped from my hand before I could stop it. Julian stepped forward quickly, picked it up and froze as his gaze fell on it. In an instant, his eyes lit up. His voice trembled with joy. Elena, this is from 2 years ago. We had a child. Was it a boy or a girl? Is the baby as beautiful as you? Where is he? Julian's expression softened completely. The usual coldness in his sharp features melted into tenderness. He reached out, wanting to pull me into his arms, but then cautiously lowered his hand again. Elena, I don't mean anything else. Boy or girl, I love them both, so long as it's your child. Did you hide the baby somewhere? Don't be mad at me anymore, please. Take me to see the child, will you? Julian. I looked at him calmly. Didn't you already investigate me and Lucas? That day he had left the hospital in silence. With his means, it wouldn't have been difficult for him to discover my relationship with Lucas. I had thought he had quietly given up. I hadn't expected him to appear again today, or to act with such desperate tenderness. Elena, he said, I admit I neglected you those 2 years. I won't hold your relationship with Lucas against you, as long as you come back to me. The day of your engagement, Isabella had an emergency and called me away. Otherwise, your ceremony would never have happened. But it doesn't matter. It's only an engagement, not a marriage. Consider it a breakup. I looked at the determined certainty on his face and spoke evenly. Julian Thorne, you and Isabella are the ones engaged. He frowned. No. What? I asked instinctively. Isabella Vance and I were a facade. We had a 2-year agreement. She helped me secure control of the Thorne Corporation, and I helped her gain half of the Vance family inheritance. Oh. I said nothing. Julian continued. Elena, don't worry. I can handle everything. This time, no one will be able to stop us. Oh. The next time I saw Julian was 3 days later in Harbor City. He looked exhausted and haggard, blocking my path at the gate of the residential compound while I was out for a walk. Elena, why won't you listen to me? I told you I'd take care of everything and then marry you. Why did you have to get your marriage certificate with Lucas? I smiled faintly. 3 days ago, Julian had sworn to me that I should wait for him. I went home instead, and Lucas and I registered our marriage. I had always believed that compared to love itself, a marriage certificate was just a piece of paper, meaningless on its own. Lucas had been anxious about it for days, but when his mother suddenly fell ill, we agreed to wait until after returning to Harbor City. It only required a few more procedures, a little more time. But Julian's words had reminded me. Perhaps that paper meant much more to someone else. So we went and got it. Lucas was happier than I had imagined. The moment we finished, he posted it on social media. Caption taken. Then we boarded the flight back to Harbor City. I didn't know when Julian had found out. Nor did I understand why he still came after me. Uncle, I said quietly, Lucas and I are already married. Julian closed his eyes for a moment, his voice trembling with suppressed anger. So what? Married couples can divorce. Once you're divorced, I'll marry you. For a moment I was speechless. Then I sighed. Julian, we ended things 2 years ago. I am now the wife of your dearest nephew, Lucas. Julian's throat moved as if he had swallowed something sharp, his gaze full of unwillingness and pain. Elena, do we have a child? Before I could answer, a white blur darted past him and leapt into my arms. Woof. I stroked the soft fur gently and whispered, "Good boy, Charlie." Julian's eyes widened in disbelief, confusion, shock, and grief all tumbling together in his gaze. That's Charlie? The one you were so anxious about when he had a fever, the one you video called the nanny for every day to check on his meals and walks, that Charlie? So Charlie is a dog. Charlie seemed to dislike Julian. He bared his teeth and barked sharply at him. I soothed him gently. Charlie, be good. After all, Julian was a guest. I nodded. Yes, that's right. We're his mom and dad. Charlie is our baby, Lucas's and mine. I had always loved dogs since childhood but could never afford to keep one. When I was with Julian, I spent most of my days alone at home. That loneliness had rekindled my wish to have a pet. But the moment I brought it up, Julian frowned and cut me off coldly. Filthy and stupid creatures. I was silently upset for days. Dogs weren't filthy or stupid. After being with Lucas, one day we passed a pet shop. I stopped before a little white puppy and couldn't bring myself to leave. Lucas sighed helplessly. You like it? I shook my head, pretending indifference. No. But that very night, he came home carrying Charlie in his arms. Elena, he said, smiling. If you like something, just say it. Don't be afraid, don't hold back. I was overjoyed and told him Charlie was our first child. Lucas's ears flushed red instantly. Where's the child then? Elena, our child. Julian's eyes turned bloodshot, his voice rising almost to a roar. I blinked, regaining my composure, and spoke softly. Julian, we did have a child. His dark eyes suddenly shone with desperate hope. I knew it, he whispered hoarsely. I knew you'd take good care of him. You always do, don't you? I smiled faintly. Yes, I took care of it well. I knew it was a child his father would never accept, and even his mother was nothing but a plaything to him. My hand slid to my lower abdomen. So when it was just a tiny 3-month-old sprout, I sent it to a world free of pain. Julian began to tremble uncontrollably. No, Elena, you're lying. Why didn't you tell me? How could you, without my permission? Julian, I cut him off quietly. You're the one who killed it. No, I didn't know. I wouldn't have allowed it. Julian, did you know? I said, my voice calm but cold. The moment before I went into surgery, I called you. Isabella answered. The agony that once felt like death now seemed almost like a distant story. She told me you just spent the night with her, said you were asleep, exhausted, and that a woman as cheap as me shouldn't dream of having you. Julian stared at me, his face pale as paper. I didn't. It's not true, I was drunk, I thought she was, nothing happened. Julian, that surgery almost killed me. When I woke up in the ICU, I only felt pain, so much pain I wanted to die but couldn't. Do you know what that feels like? Julian's back bent as if crushed under the weight of his guilt. A low, strangled groan escaped from his throat. I'm sorry. My darling, I'm so sorry. So yes, Julian, I said, my tone quiet and final. We did have a child. But you killed it. And you killed me too. That night, just as I got into bed, a warm embrace wrapped around me from behind. Lucas's chest pressed tightly against my back. Feeling the rhythm of his breath and the familiar warmth of his body, my heart gradually settled. It wasn't until I felt the dampness against my neck that I realized something was wrong. Lucas, are you crying? I tried to turn around, but his hand stopped me. Elena, I'm sorry. His voice was thick with emotion, his nose congested from holding back tears. My heart tightened. I asked softly, almost afraid to know, why are you apologizing? After a long silence, Lucas choked out the words. Elena, please. Don't ever leave me, okay? I turned again, this time he didn't stop me. In the moonlight, I gently brushed my fingers over his swollen eyelids. Lucas, we're already married, I whispered. No, he muttered stubbornly. Promise me. His pouty, helpless expression made me smile. I cupped his face and kissed him softly again and again. Wait, don't kiss me yet. And Elena, stop calling me Lucas. He looked at me like a child throwing a tantrum, love overflowing from his eyes. I laughed, my eyes curling, before capturing his lips once more and murmuring against them. Lucas, I love you. Good husband, kiss me again. Lucas's ears flushed red once more. He sighed with quiet contentment and pulled me tightly into his arms. Some words didn't need to be spoken. We both understood them already. In the 3rd year of our marriage, I became pregnant. For 10 months, Lucas treated me like a fragile porcelain doll. As my due date approached, he grew restless, unable to sleep night after night. When I awoke in the middle of the night, I'd always find his eyes wet. Elena, does it hurt? He'd whisper. I'd wrap my arms around him carefully. Silly, I'd chuckle softly. Pregnancy doesn't hurt. It's just uncomfortable sometimes. But when I think of our sweet baby, everything feels worth it. He'd nuzzle against me gently. I'll take care of both of you for the rest of my life. 3 days later, Lily was born. She was soft, sweet, and smelled like milk in heaven. No matter how much I kissed her, it was never enough. Lucas began posting 9 photo collages of her on his social media every day. I reminded him to protect our privacy and not disturb others. He only laughed. My daughter is the most perfect girl in the world. Who wouldn't love her? Who'd even dare to bully her? Lily's grandmother longed for us to return but worried that Lily was still too young. So she started sending us gifts, countless gifts. Among them, one thin envelope stood out. I opened it surprised. It was a share transfer agreement made out to Lily. The number was staggering. Lucas, standing behind me, saw it too. I raised an eyebrow at him. He looked nervous, almost sheepish. Wife, should we accept it? I slipped the document back into its envelope and smiled. Of course. If someone gives it to us, why refuse? Lucas suddenly lit up with joy. Right there, in front of all the servants, he lifted me off the ground and spun me around. Wife, I love you. My cheeks flushed, but I didn't spoil his mood. I leaned close to his ear and whispered, Husband, I love you too. And I'm not stupid. Of course I knew those daily 9 photo posts had a limited visibility setting. And the only person allowed to see them, only that person. Dan. Please subscribe for more stories.